To have external success and no internal fulfillment is the worst feeling in the world. Because here I am getting celebrated as #1 salesperson. I felt like trash because I didn't believe in the product I was representing. I literally had to start my own company. I felt it was the only way I'll ever be able to control the outcomes that my clients get. Every penny that I had was wiped from my bank account and put into this business. That's why I don't believe in plan Bs. Burn the ships. If you have conviction behind what you're doing, you don't need a plan B. And one thing that I respect so much about you and our relationship is that both of us are able to look in the mirror and change.
I think the thing that is so important in marriage and all relationships or any partnership really, even in business, no matter what, you're always going like this with your partner. You both are growing. I think where things get challenging is when someone stays who they were, now their partner has this new kind of look or lens on life that they don't share, and now they can't relate to each other.
Welcome to a very special podcast episode with the most important person in my life, the one and only Emily Hauser, the woman who has to put up with me every single day. Today we're going to go through some crazy stories in our relationship and getting started with SMB Team. So you definitely want to strap in for this one. Emily, I'm excited about this.
I'm looking forward to it. Let's get started. Let's get into it.
So what I want to first dive into is when we met.
When we met. Okay.
So it was definitely, I think, a turbulent time for me. I think one of the most important things was finding someone that I felt like I didn't have to pretend who I was around. And you were the first person in my life I ever felt I didn't have to pretend.
It's so interesting because we met when I was 21 and you were how old? 24?
Yeah.
Turning 25?
Yeah.
So I was still in college. So I really didn't have, I guess, much context into the professional world, I would say. But meeting you, I just immediately knew that you were someone who was going to make my life better. Because I think you were just so clear on your identity, and I hadn't ever met anyone in life that was just so sure of themselves and where they wanted to go. And I think that influence on me when I was so young was so critical to kind of who I am today and how we've grown together, but also how we've grown individually as well. And so I would say, yes, I felt like I could totally be myself for sure, but I think I was also just really inspired by you and just really interested in you. Like, you were just a very interesting person. You still are.
I guess that's a polite way to put it. Yeah, I think with you, I felt this strong level of self-confidence from you where you never had to prove yourself ever. And it was so interesting because a lot of, in my prior relationships, I had always felt like because I was so motivated, it almost created this tension where the person that I was with had to almost prove to me that they were also very motivated, and it created this friction where with you, it was just like, no, I'm pretty confident in myself too. It's cool that you're confident. But it was this like anti-neediness. It was like, and I'm sure we both felt the same way because you had so many close connections in your life. And my close connection at that time was business, and I was obsessed. I think I was doing sales at Yellow Pages when I...
Yeah.
Was that...
You were...
Oh, God.
You had already started there. So when I met you, you were already doing sales there.
So what year was this?
This was 2016. So we met in 2016. When I was 21, you were 24.
So I'm working at Yellow Pages. Like, what is the... what's your analysis of that situation?
Well, I didn't really know. I didn't really know what that was. I mean, all I just knew, you told me that you worked for Google. He told me he worked for Google. I'm like, okay. So in my mind, I'm thinking, Yeah, you told me that you worked for Google. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, you're like a tech person, you're a techie person, like you're good with computers. I didn't really know what that meant. And then obviously, as we got to know each other, I realized that what he really meant is he sells advertising for Google. He was selling digital marketing, and
kind
Google,
of true.
basically selling Google ads,
so,
right?
So it's funny because that was my pitch to business owners. When I would get in the door, when I was cold calling, I would say, I work with Google. And I'd say the word with, right? I didn't say for.
Yeah.
Now you just said for, but my script was I would say I work with Google.
Yeah.
Which is true because I sold Google advertising services on behalf of yellowpages.com, but it's funny because that ties into a point that, we'll talk about in the business story around fake it till you make it, which we were talking about a little bit before this, and how some of that's not needed. But really that was just insecurity. What was your analysis of my level of obsession at Yellow Pages? Like, was it insane? Was it moderately insane? Like how did you perceive me at yellowpages.com as a worker?
I would say, I didn't think you were insane. I just thought you were very committed. And I think very early on, I realized that this is something that you're just a driven individual. This wasn't an act. This wasn't something that, you were just temporarily fixated or excited about. Like, your identity is very much so tied to your goals. And I think I realized that early on. So I never thought that you were insane or that it was insane. I just thought that you were really motivated, really driven, really clear. You knew where you wanted to go. And that was, again, like inspirational for me. To me, as someone who was still in college, just about to graduate, I was getting context into how people succeed as young adults, right? And making that transition from being in college, being in school, kind of having all of your curriculum laid out for you, and I truly didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so I think your just drive and motivation and clarity kind of rubbed off on me in the best of ways. So I never really looked at what you were doing as crazy or insane. I think that at the time too, it makes sense, right? You're a young adult, you're 24, 25 years old, trying to figure out your own path and your own lane. And I think also all of your friends are that same way. So everyone that we were hanging out with was very driven, very business-minded, very goal-oriented. And so it wasn't as if you were this fish out of water. It was more so the water you were swimming in was just water of motivated and entrepreneurial people.
Yeah, I guess that's after I went through the purge.
Yeah.
When I had to part ways with a lot of my friends from college and people I was close with.
Well, I think at a certain point you realize you can have friends and relationships in all different phases of life, right? And a lot of times the people that you grew up with aren't necessarily the people that you are going to work closely with or you can bat business ideas with. And I think that still holds true today.
Yep.
I think that's just something that people have to go through after they graduate college and figure out kind of their circle and what influences are around them and who they want in their stratosphere, so to speak.
So at that time, you were working for a florist, right? And now you run a 11-person marketing team and you manage the largest events, virtual events in an industry, and hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in marketing budget.
Yeah.
So looking back to who you were when you were working for the florist when we first met to now, what do you wish you knew then when you were working for the florist that you know now?
Man, that's a good question. I think looking back even further, like throughout my entire college career and even high school, I feel like I was just really floating by, right? Some people have really clear directions. They know exactly what they want to do. They know exactly what they want to study. I would quite honestly say that I operated for that whole time period of college and until my first real job out of college, just kind of going with the flow and didn't have a clear direction. And so looking back, what I would say now and what I would do differently is get really curious, get really interested in something, and pursue it, because I just didn't have a clear picture or identity. I just quite honestly had no clue what I wanted to do. And I think that's not rare. I think a lot of people, they float through college because in your mind, you're like, oh, well, I'm going to go to college, get an internship, figure out what I want to do. And then you graduate and it hits you in the face of, wow, I really have no clue what I want to do. And a lot of jobs right out of college, you're fulfilling a very small role within an organization, or, especially if it's a big company. And so I think what's so great about what we do here is that I really got exposure to a lot of parts of business. And I think what's so interesting too is your dad was an entrepreneur. Both of my parents had, career, like jobs their whole life. They never owned businesses. And so as soon as I had exposure to that, when we started SMB Team, it just completely opened my mind. Everything changed, right?
That's crazy.
And so I think what I would tell myself back then is, go find an entrepreneur and spend time around them.
Yeah.
Because the level of thinking, creativity, commitment, the things you'll be exposed to are just massively different than any internship you'll ever get, or any first job out of college, or most jobs right out of college that you'll get. So just looking back, I wish I had more exposure to what business actually is, so I could focus my studies, or focus, people I was learning from around the things that I really was passionate about.
Let's fast forward to some crazy stories around the formation of SMB Team. Okay. So one day I call you, and this is, meanwhile, I'm the #1 salesperson at yellowpages.com. I just win President's Club. We're about to be flown to California for a vacation trip.
Yeah.
And I call you, and I tell you that I'm going to quit and start my own company. And this is 1 week before we're about to go on this free, all expenses paid vacation.
Yeah.
What went through your mind when you got that phone call from me?
Oh, man.
The only reason I called you is because I was on the way back from an appointment.
Yeah.
With that roofing contractor that I was working with in South Jersey.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And I called you after my meeting with him, and I told you I was going to quit.
I think at first I was shocked and I was confused because it happened so suddenly, right? Because there wasn't this build up or months of you going back and forth whether you should keep working there, not work there, if you wanted to start your own business. It was more so just cold turkey, like, hey, I had this idea, I don't want to work for this company anymore. And so I was shocked for sure, because there was like little to no context as to the fact that you weren't happy there, or the things that were happening, or maybe I just wasn't aware of it. But I was definitely shocked. And I was the one that actually said to you, if you remember, I said, well, let's not go on the trip. Because I didn't want to put you in a situation where you had to stand up on stage, winning President's Club. I think they wanted you to like speak there and give an inspirational speech to the other sales reps in the company. And so I was like, well, let's not go, even though it's all expenses paid. We had already had everything booked. I just didn't want you to feel like you were misrepresenting something. And I think after we talked about it, I always believed in you. So it was never a question of, well, what are you going to do? Not once did I think you were just going to sit around on the couch playing video games all day, just like with pizza boxes everywhere. I knew you were going to figure it out. I just didn't know what it would look like, whether it was you creating this new company and where that was going to go. But obviously, it ended up working out.
What's interesting about that time period is that was one of the first times I exercised rapid decision making. Very interesting, because like I remember.
Which you do all the time now.
Exactly. It's actually become one of my top strengths in my role as CEO, is I'm able to make decisions with limited information really fast, right? And I remember that was like the first time I truly trusted my impulses, right? Where I had this impulse that like, this is not the right job for me. This is not what I should be doing with my life. And within 2 hours of me having that feeling, it was the first time I trusted my gut.
Yeah.
I always felt that like I had to explain it to others before I made a decision. And that was the first time I didn't explain. I was just like, nope, I'm going to want what I want. And now my coach, Dan Sullivan, always teaches me, you know, it's okay to want what you want.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to justify why you want this. Like, life is about getting what you want, right? And you should be shameless about what you want. And that moment was a moment where I felt was the first time I took my destiny into my own hands. Because prior to that, when you think about it in school, when you think about it in working for someone else, there's always a measuring stick that they have for you. Right? In order to win at school, you have to get A's. In order to win in your job, you have to complete tasks that are assigned to you. That was the first time in my life I said, I'm going to create my own scorecard. I'm going to create my own method of scoring success. I'm not going to depend on anyone else. So my job can't tell me I'm successful. My school can't tell me I'm successful. Nothing. I'm going to tell me what's successful.
Well, I guess the question for you would be, what led you to that decision of saying, you know, I'm top sales rep here, but I don't care. I would rather leave that all behind and go out on my own. What was that decision making?
Without fulfillment
is
the ultimate failure. Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. To have external success and no internal fulfillment is the worst feeling in the world. Because here I am getting celebrated as #1 salesperson, and deep down I feel like trash. Right? That is the worst feeling, because you're getting applauded.
And explain why you felt like trash.
I felt like trash because I didn't believe in the product I was representing. Right? And here I am selling something I don't believe in. Right? So it was this crazy dichotomy in my mind where I had all this compliment, like tons of compliments, and then I had all this deep-seated resistance. And it was like gears turning every single day in my head. And that's why I literally had to start my own company, because I felt it was the only way I'll ever be able to control the outcomes that my clients get. And I think that it's interesting when people ask, like, is entrepreneurship, you know, nature or nurture? Is it, can you be born an entrepreneur or made an entrepreneur, or both? Like, I believe there's more of me that was born an entrepreneur. Because of that control freak nature. I had to have full control over the outcomes that the clients got.
And what's interesting is I agree with that, but I think it's because of what happened to your family. That you wanted full control over your destiny, right? Your family going bankrupt, you being 18 years old, you felt like you didn't have control over that. You didn't have say over if your house got repossessed, if you had to file for bankruptcy, right? At a pivotal moment of being a young adult, 18 years old, right? Because I would say that you weren't necessarily the kid that was going around creating lemonade stands. Like, you hear all these entrepreneurs say, oh, I was born an entrepreneur.
No.
I had lemonade stands at 3 years old.
I was born a great communicator.
And you were born goal-oriented.
Yeah, but that's it. I was not born, I wasn't making lemonade stands.
Yeah, but I think it's just so interesting, like nature versus nurture, like what you were saying is, I think that life experiences, no matter when they occur and when they happen in life, shape who you are today, right? Which is, I think you've said it multiple times, but going through what your family went through, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation right now if that didn't happen, right? And I think you were able to turn that pain into something so beautiful and control that destiny. And I think that was kind of like the key that unlocked the fire within you, because now I think it just woke you up to reality and adulthood and all the things that come with that.
Yeah, it's interesting how anxiety can manifest itself. Like, I wanted control over everything in my environment, and the only way to do that was to design my environment, and to do that by creating the playing field. which is starting your own business. So,
Yeah.
so I quit the job, and I end up going, it was probably 8 months before I sold anything.
Yeah.
And in those 8 months, some of the time was productive, some of it wasn't. I had this bonus check from my sales, job, and I basically used all the money from my bonus check down to when I ran out of money.
And your 401k.
And I pulled out all the money in my 401k. I took every penny out and I invested it in the business.
Yeah.
Right. So every penny that I had was wiped from my bank account and put into this business. That's why I don't believe in plan Bs. That's why, like, when people say like, oh, you should do a side hustle first, work your way up, and then like start something new, like, no, like burn the ships. If you have conviction behind what you're doing, you don't need a plan B.
Yeah.
Like, pro athletes don't go, oh, I'm gonna have a plan B for the Super Bowl. No, it's just like there's plan A, and if plan A doesn't work, great, we need a new plan A.
Yeah.
But we're gonna operate as though every plan is plan A. So we drove to your college, Kutztown University. This is right after I quit, and we basically, I don't know why you did this with me, but it was like a weekend, and we mind mapped out all the operations that we would need for me to start this company. This wasn't even you working. You're working for a florist at the time.
Yeah. Well,
right?
I was still in college at the time. I hadn't even graduated.
Yeah. So here I am, this crazy lunatic, guy coming to your college, and we're dating, and we create this vision for a company. And we designed our first landing page template.
Yeah.
Remember I showed you from Perry Marshall's book?
Yeah.
I said, I want the landing pages to look like this.
ClickFunnels.
And you picked up ClickFunnels in a matter of seconds, and you designed the whole first layout. And that landing page layout, still to this day, is what formed the basis of the thousands of landing pages we built for our clients over the last 6 years. And through that process, we ended up moving in. My mom ended up moving in with us.
Yeah.
We had an apartment in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I'm running out of money, right? I'm spending all this time preparing to make my first sale.
Yeah.
And I'm getting close to running out of money. What I want to ask you, and then I'll comment on it too, is like, what was going through your mind when I didn't make a sale for 8 months? Like, and I'm preparing.
Yeah.
There was that Starbucks I'd go to from our old apartment.
Yeah.
And I'd go in Philadelphia, Center City, by the Drake.
Yeah.
Remember? I'd go into that Starbucks. I'd work for like 4 hours preparing, and then I wouldn't make a sale.
Yeah.
And then we moved to this new place, Parktown in Philly, and
well, let's start with that, because I think your first client, you worked pro bono, like you worked for free.
Yeah.
You basically built him marketing campaigns, landing pages, ran his ads. Of course, he paid for his ad spend, but you had this resistance for charging. And I think it was smart for the first one, but I don't think it was smart for the second and third one. And I think at that point is when I kind of realized you were, I don't know if scared is the right word, but there was apprehension there.
Yeah, it was fear, yeah.
And I think that I was trying to be supportive, right? Because I understood that I never lost conviction or belief that you would figure it out. You would succeed. There wasn't a thought in my mind that if you and I hit rock bottom, like if there's zero money left in the bank account, that we wouldn't be able to figure it out. Like I truly feel like we can figure our way out of anything. So I wasn't coming from that mindset, but it was more so after I saw months and months and months of you creating your core values, your mission and vision statement, all of these things.
Yeah, I did that before I made one sale.
Before you made one sale, or before you had a team member to share these core values with, which looking back, it actually probably was a good thing to build the DNA of the company. But it's also like, who are you building these for? Get to selling, because we have rent due and I'm not making enough to support us. So we got to figure this out.
Yeah.
So I think it was like, month 1 through 6, I was super supportive. I knew we were going to figure it out. I knew you were going to figure it out. Then month 7, 8, when you kept doing work for free, I said, Bill, I looked at you and I said, Bill, you have about 1 month left of money to pay rent. I am only making 40 grand a year. there's no way I can pay our rent. Like, you have to go out and make a sale.
Yeah.
And I think that was
Yeah.
the fire that you needed to ignite you to believe in yourself.
Yeah, it's true.
And
that's why like there's clearly like pre-Emily, post-Emily, because like having someone like you that I'm so close with, like had I not had you at that time, I don't know what I would have done. But
yeah.
I trusted it's very rare when you get firm with me like you did in that conversation. And you sat me down and you're like, listen, you are going to run out of money. If you don't make a sale, there's going to be a problem. Yeah. So you need to make a sale so we can make rent.
Yeah.
And when you told me that, all of this preparation and planning went out in my mind, and I said, okay, well, I'm just going to do what I know how to do, because I knew that was the one thing I knew how to do.
Yeah.
Sell.
And that's right. I think you never were fearful about that. It was more so is going through what you went through at YP of not believing in the product you were selling.
I wanted to believe in the product.
You wanted to believe in it, and you wanted to make sure it could actually help people.
Yeah, and that's
so
why.
That was the.
So that's a fascinating point. So then the floodgates get turned on.
Yeah.
In my first month, I think I signed up like
10 clients.
Yeah, like 8 or 10 clients.
Yeah.
Which means I went from 0 in revenue to each of those clients are paying $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
So 1,500 times 8 is, what's that?
I'm terrible at math.
I don't know.
Don't ask
Over
me.
$10,000 a month, right? I'm like $12,000 per month in income in 1 month.
Yeah.
Right? And I will say some of the stuff we set up was actually used. Like the landing page templates we used were the things that I used for the new clients.
Yeah.
So like there was some benefit to the preparation that was done. The core values were used in my interview process, which made the company seem more legitimate.
Yeah.
Like that I actually had a backbone. It wasn't just Bill's helper company. It was like, no, this is our vision. We're going to do $256 million by 2026. Do you want to be a part of that? And I was able to say that in my interviews.
That conviction that you had that's, I think, something that's so unique about you, and the reason that you just are such a great leader is because you have such clear conviction to the point that you inspire others to also have that conviction. So I think it's really unique because it's not like you're just shouting it to the rooftops. You're kind of inspiring someone as you're getting them to believe in the vision, right? They become a part of that and they truly want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's just an intangible skill that you have in business.
And it comes from auto-suggestion. It comes from a survival need. Like when I went through anxiety disorder, I associated in my mind that the way I overcame anxiety was through self-suggestion. Auto-suggestion based phrases, self-repeated phrases, affirmations that I repeated to myself every single day.
Yeah.
Right? And for me to repeat to myself every single day, I do 256 million in revenue. I do 250. When I had no money, I had to repeat that to myself so much that I believed it before I shared it with someone else and they believed it.
Yeah.
So if I believe it, others will believe it. And
Yeah.
the conviction is not something I was blessed with. It was that was a skill.
That you had to learn.
I had to learn that skill.
Yeah.
Today,
You just program your mind to think positively.
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When you hopped into my truck this morning when we drove to the office,
Yeah.
what was I doing?
Reciting the statement that you say every single morning.
Yeah, my major definite purpose statement from Think and Grow Rich, right?
Yeah.
I still do it to this day.
Yeah.
And I'm going on, this is our 6th year now, right?
Yeah.
And the company has over 100 employees now, right?
Yeah.
So like the same habit I did when I was broke, repeating goals out loud to myself like a lunatic, is the same thing I'm doing today.
Yeah.
On the way to work. And you heard that when you hopped in the car. So like, it's an interesting insight that part of the reason I didn't make a sale for 8 months was because I had to sell myself on what I was selling before I sold it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So then I make all of these sales in a very short time window. Mm-hmm. And then I get to this moment where you and I do our first presentation together.
It's crazy because I
Kinda
remember
blacked out,
bits
yeah.
and pieces, but one thing about me is you are the salesperson. I am not the salesperson, right? I know that about myself.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I just wanted to help you so much that I stepped into that uncomfortability of being in a sales conversation.
Do you remember the slide deck we put together?
Yes.
Okay.
We probably have it.
Yeah.
I should look through Google Slides.
So our first pitch, now I had already signed up some clients before this.
This was
Yeah.
the first big one, and this one was for social media.
Yeah, so this was like the biggest pitch I'd done. It was going to be like, I don't know, $3,000 a month or something. So we pitched this restaurant. This is before I even knew I wanted to target the niche that I went after in my marketing agency at the time. So we were selling anyone we could, restaurants, chiropractic, everything. And we prepared for this meeting. We put all this work into this PowerPoint presentation, and then they said no.
Yeah.
At the end of it,
Yeah.
right? And I think what that taught me was like, it reminded me of the fact that you have to be open to spontaneity in business. Like, if we had put all of our chips in, we must close this one deal.
Yeah.
Like, we would have been let down, but I moved on. You and I both moved on in a matter of like the drive home.
Yeah.
We talked about it for 5 minutes. You're like, okay, cool. Who else can I sell next? And that was the last sales meeting you came on with me.
The first and last.
Because I did all the talking. I was like, why am I going to bring her along if I'm just going to talk the whole time? Yeah, that was really interesting. So then I get the first batch of clients, and what goes through your mind when I go from zero to like almost $15,000 a month in income in 1 month? What was that feeling? Try to put yourself
Yeah, I'm
back
trying
there.
to remember.
Like delusional maniac, maybe? Oh my God, we're running out of money.
I think something that it uncovered in me, and something that I still work on to this day, is scarcity mindset of, oh God, okay, it's good today, but what about tomorrow? Or what happens if all these clients don't work with us next month or in the next 3 months, and then we have rent due, right? And I think something that comes so naturally to you is having an abundant mindset. Or maybe it's something you've worked on, but it's something that you are constantly, that's the way that you think, is just through abundance. And so I think for me, it was just always survival mode of, okay, we're good now, but what about tomorrow? What about the next month? What about the next 3 months? And then I also think I quickly saw that you were burning at both ends, right? Because at that point you were doing sales, but you were also doing the fulfillment side. You were building campaigns, building landing pages, building it all. So I started to see.
I remember in the kitchen, I used to build landing pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because while I don't think you were the kid doing lemonade stands at 3 years old, I do think that business and entrepreneurship came so naturally to you, especially after those first couple of clients. I just saw everything kind of rolling.
Yeah. I had
it
all
just
this
like
pent up.
every single thing just came next. And at that point, you had studied a lot of personal development, but I don't think you studied a lot of business operations or had a lot of business mentors at that time.
Yeah.
Now you do.
Yeah.
But it's just so interesting how natural it came to you.
Yeah, well, it was speed learning after that point because I had real problems to solve, right?
Yeah.
So I go from having no money, taking all the money out of my 401k, every penny out of my bank account, almost not able to make rent, to, in 30 days, $15,000 in monthly income, right?
Yeah.
And in my mind, all I felt was a enhanced sense of responsibility. That my feeling was, oh wow, I am responsible for these clients now.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't agree with the myth of working for yourself. Like, if anything, I became a servant to my clients when I opened up the floodgates and signed up all those clients at once. I became more responsible.
Yeah.
And that was a great feeling. And then that caused me to become super curious about, okay, well, if I doubled my clients, how would I handle those clients. I'm already very busy. Well, I think I'm going to have to hire someone. And then that led to me hiring the first employee.
Yeah.
And I think it was like $6,000 a month or $5,000 a month. It was actually 5. And it was my first employee. And I remember pacing around the kitchen. Do you remember that or no?
Yeah.
And I was so anxious because I just earned all this income.
And now you're...
And now I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be basically trading a third of this income to hire an employee, which means I'm going to go down a third. But I had to have faith that if I hire this employee, I'll have more bandwidth and then I'll be able to scale
sell more,
the business higher. So what was your observation of that anxious moment where I was pacing around in the kitchen debating whether I should hire this person?
I got to put myself back. This is like, what, 6 years ago?
Maybe it wasn't that big of a deal for you. Maybe it wasn't,
I think...
For me, it was a catastrophic emotion. It was like, holy shit, a third of my entire income is going out the window.
I think that it was more so, is this the right person, right? Because I think you knew I need to hire someone. I can't keep doing both ends of the business. I can't keep selling and also building all these campaigns. And I think it was more so the risk reward of, is this the right person to take this risk on?
Yeah.
And I think you have obviously a very different experience because I was completely working at a different job, right? So this was something that you were like directly tied to. So I think it was a little bit different, but for me, it was just hoping and wishing and wanting that you choose the right person that helps move the business forward and doesn't deter or, what have you.
Let's talk about the pretend phase.
The pretend phase.
Dun, dun, dun. Where I blew everything out of proportion.
Yeah.
So, when I was interviewing people, we were working out of the basement of our apartment complex, Parktown Place in Philadelphia, and it's this co-working space. And when I'd call people to start interviewing them for this first role, I'd say, oh man, wait till you see our offices. We have the biggest pool in Philadelphia. We have a market in our basement. We have this. And people would pull up for an interview with me and they would go, hey Bill, I'm at an apartment complex. And I'd be like, oh, no. Our co-working space is in the basement.
Yeah.
And it was a public co-working space.
For the residents.
Yeah, for residents of the apartment complex. So, I would dress up like business professional with a tie.
You would wear this same suit jacket every single day, same spiked up hair. I think it's even probably like an inch taller at that point. You would dress up every single day, and there's people in the gym just working out in sweatpants.
Yeah.
And here you were like every day, 9 o'clock, like standing. You had that standing desk thing.
Oh God.
And you would stand there every single day with the suit jacket on.
That's hilarious. That is hilarious. I literally wore the same exact thing every single day for 2 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And in these interviews, I would basically I would act real super serious, like wearing the jacket and this is our offices and so. And then the next thing was when I would talk with clients, I would pretend as though we had 20 employees.
Yeah.
When really we had 20 freelancers that were waiting for work from us.
Yeah.
That I wasn't paying on a salary. So why was I so insecure that in the early stages of the business I had to puff everything up?
I think it is just that. I think it's very vulnerable, and I think it's very real that every entrepreneur goes through this of not wanting clients, you believed in the product so much that you didn't want clients or future team members to look at you not having a physical office or you not truly having 20 employees was any dictation as to how good the service that you were providing is. And so I think it's a very natural and normal thing. However, it made me uncomfortable because something about me is I cannot lie for the life of me. And I'm not saying, I think that's kind of like a white lie, right? Of saying, I don't think you're doing it to
20 employees, 20 freelancers.
You're not maliciously doing it. You're just doing it to help them build trust in what you're doing or this product.
Yeah, but I think I was also doing it because I was insecure.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just can't lie, so I hated it.
Yeah.
I think I even said to you, I said, you gotta stop doing that.
Yeah.
But this was, after you had a certain amount of clients, and I think you had maybe 2 employees or whatever the amount was.
Yeah.
But I think that it's just very normal. It's a normal part of growing a business.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish looking back, there's so many chapters of the business growth, and I always, up until the last 2 years, and you've noticed this and you've commented on it, but I always felt that I had to prove myself. Like I had to, because my goals were so big, I always felt like I had to explain a future truth.
Yeah.
Right? And I had to speak these things into existence. And if people didn't believe it, then I had to make them believe that it was going to happen. And I would do that through, puffing things up, right?
Yeah.
And now I look back and, with how the size of the company now, it's like, man, that is a regret. That is a regret. I wish I didn't feel so insecure that I had to blow things out of proportion. Like I wish I could have just been completely transparent in saying like, hey, it's just me right now, and like been clear on that. But then again, part of sales is you have to know how to highlight the right things.
Sure.
Like if you want people to buy a service that's going to improve their life, like if you're selling a gym membership, the last thing you should say is, hey, statistics show you're not going to stick through with this, so I don't think you should buy the gym membership. No, it's probably in their best interest to buy the gym membership.
Yeah.
So you should highlight the things that are positive so they can make a positive improvement to their life, right?
Yeah.
And in my case, helping people's businesses, like I felt that I had to highlight, to your point, things that would make them trust me.
Yeah.
But it wasn't needed. So talk to me about when, first of all, I didn't hire you, and we had doubts about that, like whether you should work for the company.
Yeah.
It's not like you applied or anything. It's just like we were in agreement together that it wasn't the right time for you to work with the company.
Yeah.
Right? And then there was this light switch moment where I realized, holy crap, I need someone to get in charge of this marketing stuff, because it was, as we started marketing our business, it became a valid need. You were working for a big 5 marketing agency, one of the 5 biggest agencies in the world.
Yeah.
Like, what was that feeling like for you? That was probably, crazy to feel that all of our family's livelihood is coming from one income source.
And I think that's why, so before any of this, like going back when you were in those 9 months, the dark period, those 9 months where you didn't have any clients, you were creating your core values, I was helping you, remember?
Yeah, a
lot. And then we decided one of us has to make money, because you still had your savings. I was working, I think I was a hostess and working at the florist right after college.
Yep.
And I realized, oh man, it's time to generate some actual income, right? And so then I got my job at the agency. And I think for us, the more so the decision was establishing some sort of baseline of proof of concept, I guess. And so after a year, I think it was literally a year and a half after I started working at the other agency, we decided that it was time. But for me in that moment, I think it was an identity shift, right? Because we were only dating at that time. We weren't engaged, we weren't married. And so it was more so, am I, as a young woman, going to put all my career ideals and my identity and what I'm building and the path that I'm going on into your thing, quote unquote, right? So I think for me, that was an identity that I had to battle. And just decide if that's what I wanted. And I think that very soon after we had those discussions, I realized that yes, this is what I want, right? And I think really though, the decision for me was just, am I going to give up? Because I'm a very independent person. I'm very much so someone who likes to have my own identity. I like to I've always had multiple jobs, like, you know, ever since I could have a job. I think I've had 3 jobs at a time. I was like working at a gym, I was a hostess, I worked at CVS all at the same time ever since I was like 14. I don't even know how old you have to be to get a job. But so I was always someone who provided for myself, so to speak, quote unquote, right? So now then to step into this role where it's your company and I guess it's kind of like, you know, quote unquote, you're paying me. It felt weird because we weren't married yet, right?
You know, what's so funny is it kind of was like that weird feeling in the beginning, but now with a company of 100 people, there's weeks we don't even talk to each other in the business.
Yeah.
Like, we talk to each other at home, but there's so much complexity in the business now. It's like, it feels like I work for this company, you work for this company.
Yeah.
And the company's now big enough to where it's like, you know, but in the beginning, when it was just
so
like,
intertwined,
I mean, you joined with how many employees?
I think there was like 3 or 4.
So you were like the 4th or 5th employee.
Yeah.
Right? So that, it's a significant feeling because at that point you kind of are working for me.
Yeah.
Because it's such a small team.
Yeah.
Right? So interesting. Yeah, for me, the feeling was more around pride and fear. So like, I wanted to not let you down.
Yeah.
That's the pride part of it. It's like, holy crap, this amazing woman that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with is quitting her job and going to work for something that was just an idea like a year ago.
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility.
And like that was another high responsibility moment, just like when I signed up the first batch of clients.
Yeah.
Like, and I started realizing, oh, I can trust myself. When I'm putting high responsibility moments, I can trust myself. Right. And that was an important, that was a important belief shift for me, is if I make big decisions, I trust myself to figure it out.
Yeah, which is true confidence.
Yeah.
That's how confidence is built, right?
But it also is pressure. But pressure creates diamonds. I mean, pressure is the best gift ever.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've used pressure in every phase of this growth that we've been on, right? Especially in the business. When we fast forward to now, and, you know, we were, I guess we have our little thing here, 641st fastest growing company in the United States.
2 years in a row.
Last year. Well, yeah, for 2023.
Yeah.
And then the year before, we were number 729. So to be in the top 1,000 list 2 years in a row, and to have 100 employees, and to be doing multiple 8 figures in revenue, and be a market dominating force in our industry, how would you walk through the identity shift for you in terms of, and then I'll also comment on it, but the identity shift of something just being an idea with this uncertainty behind it. Is this going to work out? Is this real? To now where we're at, where this is a real freaking thing.
Yeah.
This is an enterprise.
I think the biggest thing that I've realized from then until now, right? Now it feels like the Business SMB Team is a living, breathing thing. It's a living, breathing thing that's separate than you and I.
That's interesting.
It's something that it's self-sustaining. It can feed itself. We can feed it. It can feed, you know, whomever, right?
100 people.
It's this self-sustaining
Yeah.
thing. Like I'm like visualizing it in my mind, and I'm just visualizing this like pulsating entity with a heartbeat of just it's a real life thing. And so that's the shift, because way back when, 6 years ago, it didn't feel that way. It felt like this business was so tied to you, or so tied to, just truthfully, honestly, you. Like if you didn't keep the engine running, the engine didn't run, right? Yeah. And now it feels like we have such an incredible team and such an incredible clients and product and service that it's it's a living organism, is like how I view it. So I think that's the difference of, we've truly built with our team something that can survive on its own versus something that was so you dependent, which I think is every small business. Is every small business, this is what we coach our clients on, is it's so them dependent. If they stop running that engine, the engine stops, right? And so I think making that transition to the engine running itself is huge. And I think that's kind of where we're at now. How about for you?
Yeah, it's the question is really like, what's the mindset shift of going from the uncertainty of it really just being an idea to now it being a real enterprise? And like, I'm sure you're not going to be surprised with my statement here, but like, I don't even know if I have a feeling about it, because like I'm so in love with the game of business that like I'm really only looking at the next week and the week behind me. Like I you know, it's almost like my mind can't even go there. It's a very interesting feeling. If I had to say like what it feels like, it feels like exactly what I envisioned. I mean, it feels like just manifestation, I guess, because the challenge is I've pictured this in my mind every single day for 6 years, like, and even longer. When I first got the idea of the business, I pictured this in my mind. So for 8+ years, this is all I've been picturing. So like to step into a reality that I've already been picturing for 8 years is like, okay, it's like I'm desensitized to it, because that's part of the auto-suggestion. That's part of the visualization is, can you put yourself into a future state and make yourself so comfortable in that future state that once you get there,
it feels
no
natural.
big deal.
Yeah.
It's like Olympic athletes who picture themselves in the moment of the Olympics, and when they get there, their heart rate actually goes down. In competition. Okay, so let's go through successful marriage. How do we create a successful marriage with one another? Why don't we fight? Like, I'd say we have a pretty dang good thing going. And part of it's because, you know, maybe luck. We found the right two mix of personalities. We're both, I believe the reason it works so well is because we're both very open-minded to character defects, right? There is a phase where, you know, I would get really defensive when you would challenge my viewpoint on things, and I would just have to hold my stance. We went through this phase of self-learning. I guess I'll put it. You realized when you did something wrong, you would take it personally. So we both had these manifestations, and one thing that I respect so much about you and our relationship is that both of us are able to look in the mirror and change. When we notice that there's a character flaw of ours that's holding us back. I think
I think the thing that like is so important in marriage and all relationships or any partnership really, even in business or what have you, but it's that no matter what, you're always going like this with your partner, right? You both are growing. You could be growing like this, right? There's ebbs and flows to it, but at least you're both growing. I think where things get challenging is when someone stays who they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and you're over here ebbing and flowing and changing. And I think that the biggest thing is you have to find someone that's willing to go on the growth of life with you, truly. Of they want to continue to learn and evolve and change and become a better person, like a more enlightened person, a happier person, a more passionate person, whatever it is. But at least you both are committed to this kind of ebb and flow of life. And I think that's such a key. And I think that relationships go awry when someone's staying stagnant, when someone's staying who they were 5 years ago, 20 years ago, right?
Such a good point.
And you now their partner has this new kind of look or lens on life that they don't share, and now they can't relate to each other.
That's it. I think you just articulated it. Like, every single phase of growth has been matched with you and I finding our own version of growth. That's big, because we never let one of us quote unquote outgrow the other. there's always that next level of personal development happening, I think, with both of us.
And I think at times you have to pull your partner up, or your partner has to pull you up, right?
Yep.
And those are the moments that you're talking about of like, we're both willing to adapt and change for things that we know about ourselves that need to change, right? Or we want to change. And it takes the other person pointing it out to you. And I think something that's so interesting is I always say that relationships, marriages, what have you, they are the biggest and best mirror into yourself that you could ever have, right? Especially a marriage, because it's the most vulnerable relationship that you'll ever have. Look at Jade. It's gonna be great if she goes up on the couch and she just sits there. But your marriage is the most, sacred and closest relationship that you'll ever have in life.
Yeah.
And so I think it exposes parts of yourself that you need to heal, you need to work on, you need to fix, things that are great about yourself, things that you could love more about yourself. And I think that, the beauty of a marriage or a partnership or what have you is that, like, that person is the window into the parts of yourself that need to get better, so you overall can be happier, more fulfilled, whatever it is that you're searching for. And so I think that we've done that for each other throughout many phases of life.
Yep.
And we'll continue to do that.
I think another super powerful one that we've both learned and gotten really good at
Yeah.
is admitting when you're wrong really fast.
Yeah.
Self-admitting, right? I think part of the reason we never fight is because one of us is going to pretty quickly go, oh, I probably am wrong about this. And when someone admits that, self-admits that, the argument's gone.
Yeah.
Like, so that's another thing I think that we have that's special for us.
And I think it neutralizes, because in those tense moments, all the person is asking for is to be understood or heard, or like their viewpoint is understood by the other, right? So that immediately is kind of a disarming statement if you mean it truthfully, right? If you truthfully say, you know what, you're right, I am acting like an a-hole right now, or I am not treating you the right way. And so it's validating to the other person to that you recognize that. And I think that's a really big key.
Jade, sit. Come on.
You want to come up here? Of course. Come on. Okay.
She thinks she's like a lap puppy.
She's going to sit on my lap. There she is. Good All right. Girl. Me and Jade now.
Okay. Beautiful. What a beautiful
We're a package deal, so.
So we just introduced a third formal guest to the podcast.
She has a lot to say. She's going to be very, very loud.
Very extroverted.
Yeah.
So another one is work mode.
I can't take her
No, that's serious. Like, another one is you let me be in work mode when I'm in work mode.
Yeah.
So, like, I look at weeks, like when I'm doing a work week.
Yeah.
If I get home at 8 p.m., like I did multiple times this week.
Yeah.
Like, I'm out there hunting.
Yeah.
I'm out there freaking attacking, right? So I have never received a text from you where it's like, when are you coming home? Like, You'll call me and ask, hey, need to know when you're coming home because I'm going to put your food away if you're not home by X time.
Yeah.
But you're never like asking me to come home early.
It's more so I just want to clean up the dishes.
Yeah. But you give me complete free reign to be in game mode, as though I was on like the football field for a championship game. You're not going to be calling me in the middle of a Super Bowl game going, oh, you didn't call me for 2 hours. Babe, I'm playing the Super Bowl right now.
Yeah.
Like, so you let me be in work mode when I'm in work mode, and then we have connection mode on weekends and the quarterly vacations that we take, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge key to our success. I'm curious as to how you make sense of that in your mind. Like, how do you let me be in work mode like that? It's not common for a significant other to let that happen.
I have 3 thoughts on this. I hope I remember them all by the time I'm done with this. But the first is, I knew exactly who you were when I was marrying you, right? And that's the person that I said yes to, right? I didn't go into our marriage or our relationship expecting to change you or to change this about you. Like, you loving business, the game of business, is what makes you you. If I were to say to you, Bill, you can only work 3 days a week, you would not be yourself. And I think you would also you just have so much energy and like enthusiasm about life that you would drive yourself crazy because you wouldn't have an outlet for it, right? And so I think that I knew exactly who I was saying yes to, and I accept you for everything that you are, and that's never something that I want to change about you, because those are the parts of you that I also love, right? That you're so driven, you're so motivated, you're doing this to help other people, whether it be our team or our clients or, you know, colleagues, mentors, whoever it is, right? And I think that that's how I make sense of it. I think the other component of it is you also don't try and change me.
Yeah.
You don't say to me, why aren't you working until 8 p.m.? Because that's not me. That's not that's not how I recharge. That would burn me out, right? Of course, I give it my all when we're on, but I'm not going to necessarily, you know, pull the Bill Hauser work week, which I don't think many people could, right? But I think on the other side of that, you also, you know, respect my needs and what recharges me and how I show up best to work. The other really important component to, you know, any successful relationship, successful marriage, is that you have to be potentially over communicative as to what it is that you want or you need. I think most people kind of just assume that their partner, this is the closest person in their life, they're just gonna know exactly what's on my mind or exactly what I need, or they're gonna know how to show up for me. And that's true, but it's not true 100% of the time, right? Of course, you know certain things that I need and things like that, but I think where people run into issues is when they're not forward with their needs and they expect their partner to just be able to read their minds.
I think Jade's being forward with her needs right now.
Yeah, Jade is very forward with her needs.
Jade, do you need pets?
We can all learn from Jade. But I think that, you know, where people feel resentment is when they feel like their partner isn't meeting their needs, but they're also not speaking up and they're not sharing what those needs are to their partner. So I think that's a really important component of staying on the same page, having clear communication, and just making sure that you're also asking your partner, like, what are their needs, right? It's not just all about you. It's what do you need? How can I show up for you?
Like, it's important for you, for example, that we have time uninterrupted, no phones, together with the dog on weekends.
Yeah.
Right? And just you and me on weekends.
Yeah.
Another need is, I know you don't want to do big social dinners multiple times a weekend.
Yeah.
Maybe one night a weekend, but you also need one night for you and I to connect.
Yeah.
Right? I know we both need around quarterly vacations, approximately.
Yeah.
Right? Because of how hard I work and because of, you know, the connection that you need from me that you don't get through a typical work week.
Right.
So it's a really interesting balance that we found where we're off balance but on purpose.
Yeah.
Right? Where some weeks I'm off balance, but we're on the purpose of, okay, over an entire 3-month stretch, those balances are going to work their ways out with weekends, quarterly vacations, and us respecting each other's needs. The other one that you had was understanding how personalities interact.
Yeah.
Okay? So now this is an important one, because you and I used to have, I would say, not fights, but like arguments around my intense, direct, blunt communication style and your more emotional communication style.
Yes.
So now if I say something intense or blunt, you accept that, oh, that's just how Bill communicates. He's working on it, but, you know, I'm not going to expect him to change his entire DNA.
Right.
And then same with you. If you get overly emotional towards something, I don't criticize you for it. So talk to me about how personalities mix.
I think this is, you know, the typical male-female, just the way that most males and females communicate is, I think women are a lot more emotional and men are more logical. And I think that is what it is. I think the one component that we've specifically worked on is I've realized that when you're communicating really intensely, that's how you communicate 99% of the time, right? And so for me, it was, well, I had to learn to not take it personally if you were communicating something with a lot of passion, huge. Right? Because I would take it personally, or I would take it as something of, you think XYZ, and I would just, hold that to my heart. And I think that the biggest lesson that I've learned is just separating the message from the way that you are communicating it.
Yep.
Because you're a very passionate person, and so you communicate almost everything at a level 10, right?
Yeah.
So, and then for me as well, I think I've learned to not take things, I'm not perfect at this by any means, I'm still working on it, but to not take things personally, because that used to be my MO. As soon as anyone would say anything, I would just take it so personally, and I would feel a lot of shame or what have you. And I think that's something that I've really had to work on. But I think that the balance and understanding who your partner is and their true intentions is really, really important.
Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is not something we commonly do. So I hope you're able to get some insights on your own journey in your career, business, your relationships. So give us a thumbs up and leave a comment regarding your biggest takeaway from today's podcast. And also let me know what you want us to make a future video on. If you want Emily on another podcast, she'd love to know that. So you can let us know in the comments. And if you want us to go deeper into any topics that we covered, let us know as well. And I'll see you in the next one. Stay great.